Please remain standing as we listen first to the pontifical anthem in fidelity to the successor of Peter, and then to the national anthem of Austria, the country that hosts the ITI.
Please be seated. I invite our rector, Dr. Christian Alting von Geusau, to give the welcome.
Your Eminence, our beloved Grand Chancellor, Cardinal Schönborn, I think everybody who has been following you recently can appreciate what a great joy and a privilege it is that you are amongst us today. And we thank you that despite the fact that you are still in recovery from your operation, you have decided to come home, as we always love to say, and to be with us today. So may I ask for a warm welcome for His Eminence. Dear graduates, I hope that you realize and will always remember how privileged you were today that His Eminence joined us and will be handing you your diplomas today, considering the circumstances. So we are indeed deeply grateful. And at this moment, I am forced by other circumstances to go off script. I'm sorry, Dominic, I have to do so because we have a very important birthday today. Our beloved Dani is turning 86 today. Can we please all stand up and sing another anthem, namely the Happy Birthday anthem? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Danny. Happy birthday to you. Please be seated. We have a full hall today, and as we walked in the procession, I saw seated many people who actually did not appear on our official list of guests, which is a great joy because that means that many of you have decided at the last moment to join us. And I would like to give a warm welcome to all our guests. I would do a great injustice to give all the names of all the dear guests that are here, because I would certainly be leaving out somebody. So please accept from this podium here a warm welcome to each one of you personally. I know all the special guests that are here amongst us today, and I will be greeting you, and I salute you and thank you for being with us. And I would also like to express my deep gratitude to my predecessor as rector of the ITI, Monsignor Hogan, who was the main celebrant at the Mass today. And thank you, Monsignor. I don't know where you are sitting. Thank you, Monsignor, for doing us the honor of celebrating the Mass today. Of course, a very special welcome goes to the families and the friends of our graduates here today. I hope that if this is the first time that you have come to the ITI, you will have probably felt or experienced why it is that our campus, the ITI, is such a special place to be. I am sure that you have encountered the warm hospitality, the friendship, the love that is poured out over our guests, because that is standard procedure here. And I call it a little bit ironically standard procedure, but I don't mean it in that sense, because it is what we live here. And I am sure that you, as family and friends of the graduates, have really experienced that. And instead of going down the list of all the names, I would like to highlight some people here that I would like to give a special welcome, although they are at home here, and that is the many students that during the past days have been quietly, humbly cleaning all the windows and cleaning all the corners and checking that everything is okay, making sure you have your drinks. I was deeply touched to see you, dear students, so lovingly working quietly to prepare for this day. And I would like to highlight your presence here today, because I know very well how the work that happens on the background is what makes a day like this so special, because it makes sure that the things we take so much for granted are actually in place. So thank you, dear students that have all been working quietly away these past days, and will also some of you be doing in the next days, and the cleaning up, and a warm applause for you. Graduates, you are the ones who are to be welcomed most especially today in this hall as you sit across from your faculty that will hopefully give their consent for you to graduate today. Is it going to be a hard sell? Probably not. I think you're in safe waters. But we have made sure in the proceedings today that the explicit approval of the faculty is better heard and better seen, because this is a beautiful tradition, a beautiful academic tradition that we like to keep high. Without further ado, I would like to pass on to the Dean to start the formal proceedings of the graduation. And once again, a warm welcome to each and every one of you today in this hall. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sharing this very special day in the year of the ITI.
The conferral of the degrees will be awarded by His Eminence Christoph Kardinal Schönborn. Graduates, please stand up. As a requirement of the Church for master, licentiate, and doctorate degrees in sacred theology, we ask you now to make a profession of faith.
I, Suzanne Crumpleman.
I, Joshua Keepley. I, Lawrence Gerard Fox. I, Derek Driscoll. I, Pascola.
I, Samantha Gola. I, Melanie Bradley.
I, Colby Riggio.
I, Timo Klein.
I, Carolina Unita.
I, Susan Fox.
I, Benedict Henry.
I, Agnes Holzler. I, Rachel Johnson.
I, Nicholas Keppel.
I, Knut Stengler.
Das musst du machen. For the conferral of degrees, we kindly ask you to hold your applause until after each individual diploma is awarded. Thank you. We will now award certificates to our Studium Generale students. I invite Dr. Vincent De Meo, Program Director, to present the Studium Generale participants. Please.
Thank you. Michaela Buchbecker. Michaela is one of our students who comes all the way from Amstetten. After graduating from agricultural college, she was still searching for her place in life. So she came to the ITI, and she flourished greatly. Her continuous participation in our seminars and her desire not to seek easy answers manifested her deep commitment to her education here at the ITI. Michaela is proud to proclaim that she has found now her place in life. She is very much looking forward to becoming a teacher for German and for biology.
Certificate of completion. This certifies that Michaela Buchberger has successfully completed the program of Studium Generale and fulfilled all necessary requirements.
Claire Olivia Glasser from the United States. As our year of studies progressed, Claire's significant maturation enabled her to become one of our leaders in our seminars. She's a highly self-motivated learner who possesses the confidence and skill not only to confront a text, but also a teacher. She questions them critically, and when she finds the truth, she rests in it. She has expressed to us her deep appreciation for her year studying at the ITI, so much so that Claire will continue with us studying in our liberal arts program.
Te hic per annum studiis erudictue dedici presenti indicamus testimonio. Claire Olivia Glaser. Congratulations.
Ludwig Graf von Brühl, Germany. Ludwig, who has remarkable intellectual abilities, received a deep formation from a year of reading and discussing the great masters of the Western education. His performance in our seminars was exceptional, where he often took the lead in our discussions. He testified that ITI's unique integration of study, prayer, and community enabled him to, quote, experience a year with God. And this is definitely one of our ultimate goals, and we're so happy that you've achieved it. In light of these foundational and fulfilling semesters, Ludwig will continue to study philosophy and theology, all the while giving testimony in the world.
Te hic per annum studiis eruditurque de dedice presenti indicamus testimonio Ludwig Friedrich Antonius Franziskus Michael Maria Graf von Brühl.
Antonia Margareta Lehmann-Dronke, Germany. In our seminars, Antonia was always very attentive and actively writing many notes from our discussion. But she was on the quieter side, and I frequently wondered what was she thinking about regarding the important questions we were talking. However, in her final examination and in her paper, I found out. The force of her understanding, caused by her intellectual might, knocked me off my chair. Her attributes as an astute student with effective study skills were clearly revealed. I'm sure that in the next step of her life, she will be very successful.
Te hic per annum studiis eruditurnique te dedice presenti indicamus testimonio Antonia Margareta Lehmann-Dronke.
Alexander David Schub from USA and Belgium. Alexander is the kind of student a professor would want to have in his class. His energy and his excitement to discuss together life's deepest question is contagious. I remember when Alexander was visiting the ITI a year before he even came to study with us, he sat in my class. Immediately, he began discussing questions with people he never even met before. It was very impressive. In a similar vein, if there are any long pauses during a seminar, Alexander is your man to break the silence. His many questions and statements would often inspire discussions that result in discovery for many of us studying with him. He has expressed that his wonderment is enhanced by ITI's prayerful environment. He too will continue studying with us in our liberal arts program.
Te hic per annum studiis erudinonique te dedice presenti indicamus testimonio Alexander David Schub.
Teresa Sutherland from the United States of America. Teresa came for us from the US to study, seeking a year of formation and to deepen her understanding of the Catholic faith. During this year, she has matured into a very deliberate thinker who would often share her thoughts just at the critical moment in our discussion, helping us all to move closer to the truth. Her remarkable written work too reveal the depth of her considerations. Teresa shared with us that because of her wonderful experience of study, community, and prayer at the ITI, that she's decided to continue her education with us within our liberal arts program.
Te hic per annum studiis eruditionique te dedice presenti indicamus testimonio Teresa Sullivan.
Benedict Joseph Trumer, Germany. I have great admiration for Benedict. He came here not knowing really what he was getting into. However, he dived headfirst into his studies and never looked back. It was a great joy to study with Benedict. First, because he possesses something really important, really, really dear. He possesses a significant desire to know the truth of the matter. He has such an intense desire that he would often ask his students to repeat what they're saying. He'd ask basic fundamental questions. He would summarize the text so that we're very clear on what we're talking about. It's really such a wonderful attribute that he possesses in our class. I'm convinced that he is better because of his approach to his studies, and surely has come to a deeper knowledge of these worthwhile realities.
Te hic per annum studiis eruditionique te dedisse presenti indicamus testimonio Benedict Joseph Truma.
Margaret Ann Tucker. Margot is the matriarch of the Studium Generale group this year. If there was an urgent question that needed to be asked, she would be the one to do it. If there was something the entire Studium Generale group needed to communicate to me, Margot would be their spokesperson. If each member needed to unify together, Margot would be the rallying point. All of this expresses her deep friendship and love she has for each of her peers, and her keen sensitivity to the seriousness of what took place during this year of formation at the ITI. She is so thankful that the broad and inspiring education that she's received at the ITI. She's sure that this will carry her through her next educational experiences. Thank you, Margot, for all your love.
Te hic per annum studiis eruditionique te dedisse presenti indicamus indicanius testimonio. Margaret Anne Tucker. Congratulations.
We continue. We will now award the Master in Marriage and Family degrees. Would you, MMF graduates, please stand up? Supplicant venerabili congregatione doctorum et magistrorum regentium. Qui compleverunt omnia que per statuta requiruntur, ut hec sufficiant quo admittantur ad gradum enumeratum magister in studiis de matrimonia et familia. Magistri, does the faculty concede?
Concedo.
Haec gratia concessa sunt, et sic pronuntiamus concessas. I invite Dr. Gintas Wojtoszka now, the Program Director of Marriage and Family, to present the students.
Jonita Karolena came to study here from the far Indonesia. She has been a subtle and humble presence for us here, eager to know what happens in this strange Western world. Managing a new language, enjoying the international community at our institute. She grew spiritually and intellectually, and was planning to return to her beautiful profession of teaching children in her homeland. She receives a diploma of having participated at the MMF program.
Certificate of participation. This is to certify that Jonita Karolena has participated for 4 semesters in the master's degree program for studies in marriage and the family.
Klara Belikova. After studying languages in Slovakia, she came to the ITI to find here knowledge, friendship, and prayer. She found these things here. Klara wishes to apply the treasures she received in the MMF program in education to life, love, and chastity of the young in her homeland, that is Slovakia, while considering to apply to the further studies of theology here at the ITI.
I will now read for the first of these graduates the whole certificate in Latin and then in German, and the following ones will then follow. Institutum Theologicum Internationale, nomine et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sedes apostolica nobis concesse, Klara Bielikova, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, magistra in studiis di matrimonio et familia, renunciata et declarata est, collatis in eam omnibus insignibus et iuribus, que ad hunc gradum pertinent, in cuius rei testimonium nos rector e rectoris vicem gerens nec condecanus, auctoritate rite commissa. Congratulations.
Susan Cora Fox from the United States of America. Who can tell who Mrs. Susan Fox is not? She's a poet and a former investigative news reporter, a social media personality, and the wife of one of the best Catholic men in the US, and one of the most outspoken students in the history of our institute. At times even making speechless our most outspoken professors. Her spontaneity and deep enthusiasm for faith, Pope St. John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Francis, I could go on with that, and for theology of the body, and for everything what the Church teaches will continue, we are sure, to bear abundant fruit in future.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse Susan Cora Fox, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim cui nomen, woman ask, who am I? Such a beauty made by God for her own sake in his image scripsit. Magistra in studiis de matrimonio et familia.
Benedict Hinz. Benedict is a gentleman from England, Logically, as is evident for everybody who knows him, he is both gentle and manly. A strong Catholic man endowed with a systematic and deep mind. He came to the ITI after studying philosophy and after achieving his master's in marriage and family degree with great excellence, will now stay at the ITI to pursue the sacred theology masters.
Nomini et auspicius summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestates a sede apostolica nobis concesse Benedict James Hinze, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, summa cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen the grace of matrimony, an unused talent, exploring the need of faith for living fully the sacramentality of marriage, scriptit magister in studiis de matrimonia et familia.
Agnes Holzner from Austria. Agnes came to the ITI because of her great interest in the studies of Catholic vision of marriage and family. We were happy to have her very Austrian presence here. Diligent, stable, charitable, and sunny personality. After she graduates from our institute, she will teach as primary school teacher in a Christian school in Linz and continue as a volunteer for a pro-life organization in Austria.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse Agnes Holzner, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta cum laude superavit, magistra in studiis de matrimonio e familia.
Rachel Johnson from the United States of America. Before coming to the ITI, Rachel had studied creative writing and then taught for 4 years in South Korea. Rachel's precise and very logical thinking and wit, which she once said she learned from her father, are excellent qualities for serving as a Catholic writer, enlightening readers on different questions of morality and faith. This is at least what is in her plans, as well as to support parents in their mission as primary educators of their children and leaders of the communities of love.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse Rachel Elizabeth Johnson, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen consent versus love, answering the question, what's the harm if there's consent, scripsit, magistra in studiis de matrimonio et familia.
Nicholas Köppel from the United States of America. Nicholas is a deeply devout and sharp-minded Catholic man, also, as we know him, with somewhat rebellious spirit, which is in a way logical for somebody with such a deep love for his beloved, which is theology of the body. Nicholas's intelligence is a sure asset in working for the civilization of love, and we are certain he will choose his fights well in his home state of Missouri, where he plans to work for the church in the area of marriage and family.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concessi, Nicolas Alexander Köppel, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta magna cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen, a summary of chapter 1, Theology of the Body 1 to 23, of man and woman he created them, by Saint John Paul II, scriptit, Magister in studiis de matrimonio et familia.
Ludmila Ostenyova. She came from Slovakia to the ITI after her previous studies of psychology in order to deepen her knowledge about man and woman, marriage and family. Here in Trumau, she successfully baptized her psychology degree, as she says, grew in her love toward Catholicism, both Western and Eastern, and she learned that changing the world is not a nice phrase, but a fundamental call of every Christian. She herself would like to realize this call by connecting psychology with faith and by helping other people grow into who they truly are. And here is a mysterious phrase, as we know Ludmila as a subtle and somewhat mysterious person. One day, she also hopes to apply her studies in the most practical way possible, together with the one who appears to be the one.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse Ludmila Postenviova, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, summa cum laude superavit, magistra in studiis de matrimonio et familia.
We will now award the Master of Sacred Theology degrees. Would the STM graduates please stand up? Supplicant venerabili congregatione, doctorum et magistrorum regentium, qui compleverunt omnia que per statuta requiruntur, ut hec sufficient quo admittantur ad gradum enumeratum sacrae theologiae magister. Magistri, does the faculty concede?
Concedo.
Heccatia concessi sunt et sic pronunciamus concessas. I invite now, please take a seat, I invite now Dr. Timothy Kelly, Master of Sacred Theology Program, Director, to present the students, please.
Derek Driscoll from the United States. Derek came 4 years ago from the Franciscan University of Steubenville, Ohio, from where he secretly defected to us in order, in his own words, to study the primary sources of the great masters. Derek has not only happily achieved that to great success, but since arriving has become a proud father and husband, and looks forward now to further postgraduate theological studies in order ultimately to form others in their understanding of the faith.
Institutum Theologicum Internationale, nomine et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse. Derek Parker Driscoll, postquam experimenta omnia legibus, instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen The Analogy of the Word of God, scriptit Sacre Theologiae Magister, renunciatus et declaratus est, collatis in eum omnibus insignibus et iuribus, quod ad hunc gradum pertinent, in quios rei testimonium nos rector et rectores vicem gerens, nec non decanus auctoritate rite commissa. Verleihungsurkunde. Die Theologische Fakultät, Internationales Theologisches Institut, verleiht in der Autorität des Heiligen Stuhls unter Berücksichtigung des Konkordates zwischen dem Heiligen Stuhl und der Republik Österreich, gemäß der Apostolischen Konstitution Sapientia Christiana und dem Dekret der Studienkongregation Nummer 570 und der Verbalnote des Bundesministeriums für europäische und internationale Angelegenheiten. Nach Annahme der Diplomarbeit und erfolgreicher Ablegung der Diplomprüfung Herr Derek Parker Driscoll, geboren am 20. Juni 1993 in Abilene, Texas, USA, den akademischen Titel Sacre Theologiae Magister, MAG-Theol, Trumau, den 8. Juni 2019.
Lawrence Fox from the United States. 3 years ago, Lawrence and his wife Susan gave up their home and livelihood in the United States in order to come to the ITI, abandoning all that they did and had in order to advance in wisdom and understanding of the faith. And Lawrence had spent the previous 25 years as an electrical engineer. And I must say that some of that electricity certainly found its way into our seminars. Lawrence will be remaining at the ITI in order to pursue licentiate studies before eventually hoping to serve the church specifically in the state of Arizona.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Lawrence Gerard Fox, postquam experimenta omnia legibus, instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen Christian Gnosticism and the response of the ante-Nicene Church, scriptit Sacrae Theologiae Magister.
Joshua Keatley from the United States. Joshua came to us from the College of St. Thomas More in New Hampshire, in the USA, and whilst our previous graduate Lawrence brought his own electricity to seminars, Joshua tended to bring a calm and sober rationality to proceedings, which we all greatly appreciated. Joshua tells us that his next step in life is to learn the Czech language. Now, without wishing to be presumptuous, I think this might have something to do with the fact that he met and married our graduate last year, our Czech graduate last year, Aneška. Joshua has been an outstanding student and intends now to pursue doctoral studies in theology.
Nomine et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse Joshua Thomas Augustin Keatley, postquam experimenta omnia legibus, instituti prescripta, summa cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen Theological Epistemology and Espousal Analogy, scripsit Sacrae Theologiae Magister.
Suzanne Crumpleman from the United States. Suzanne came to us from the laboratories of Arkansas, where she worked as a laboratory technician in the field of animal science. And really from the very first day, without a hint of bossiness, Suzanne very much strived to keep us all on the straight and narrow these past 5 years. And it comes as no surprise to me to learn that her next step is to go and organize the International Theology of the Body Symposium in the Netherlands. So from herding cattle in Arkansas to shepherding souls as a director of faith formation at a Catholic parish in Arkansas, Suzanne came to the ITI, as she puts it, to get certified in what she did. Suzanne has been a blessing for the Institute in and out of the classroom, and we wish her well.
Nomine et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vit potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Suzanne Lucille Crumpleman, postquam experimenta omnia legibus, instituti prescripta, magna cum laude, superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen My Father's House, a temple transformation in the Gospel of John via a theological exegesis of John 14, 2-3. Scripsit Sacrae Theologiae Magistra. Or Mr. General.
Colby Riggio from the United States. Colby is the latest member of the Riggio family dynasty to be graduating from the ITI today. And Colby provided me with a perfectly succinct and not entirely incomplete account of his 5 years with us. He writes, "At the ITI, I spent my time DJing dances, directing plays, and in general trying to make people smile. I think in all this he has been gloriously successful, but I can also testify that Colby has studied and certainly well deserves his master's degree in sacred theology. Colby now looks to discern between two paths to follow. He is looking into acting on the one hand and a PhD on the other. I should imagine a combination of the two is not entirely out of reach for Colby. We wish him well on his return to the United States."
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Colbe John Reggio, postquam experimenta omnia legibus, instituti prescripta, cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen Islam, a Christian heresy or a new religion, scripsit Sacrae Theologiae Magister.
Finally, Melanie Ryland from the USA. After some years of studying piano and working in arts administration, Melanie entered our Studium Generale program. And then, from that, provoked by the great questions of human life, its meaning and purposes, she proceeded on to her master's degree in sacred theology. She plans on dedicating the next year to mission and social work before hoping to fulfill her lifelong desire to contribute to a reawakening of the American public square in education and politics in the area of the unconditional dignity of the human person.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Melanie Ryland, postquam experimenta omnia legibus, instituti prescripta, cum laude superavit, nec non magistralem tesim qui nomen, but I have called you friends, the phenomenon of friendship within Christian life, a comparison of Aristotle and Aquinas in light of today. Scripsit Sacrae Theologiae Magistra.
Licentiate students, please stand. Supplicant venerabili congregationi, doctorum et magistrorum regentium, qui compleverunt omniaque per statuta requiruntur, ut ex officiant quo admittantur ad gradum enumeratum Sacrae Theologiae licentiatus. Magistri.
Concedo.
Haec gratia concesse sunt, et sic pronunciamus concessos. I invite now class speaker, Dr. Vladika, to introduce the two licentiate students.
Eva Maria Golla. Mrs. Golla came to the ITI from Germany in 2017 with her husband, who is also graduating today. She says she loved especially meeting new friends and most especially enjoyed classes with Father Colauti. In the future, she plans on doing pastoral work for youth and married people. Besides that, she will teach in a study program for sexual pedagogy, so within the field of marriage and the family.
Institutum Theologicum Internationale, nomine et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Eva Maria Irmgard Golla, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, cum laude superavit, nec non ad licentiatam thesim qui nomen die Erneuerung der Ehespiritualität als Antwort und Chance für die gegenwärtige Situation der Ehe und Familie in der katholischen Kirche Deutschlands. Scriptit Sacrae Theologiae Licentiata, renunciata et declarata est, collatis in eam omnibus, insignibus et iudibus, que ad hunc gradum pertinent, in cuius rei testimonium nos rector et rectoris vicem gerens nec non decanus auctoritate rite commissa.
Incipiatis in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
Amen.
Lucas Golla. Mr. Golla came to the ITI with his wife to study within the licentiate program. After he finished his STL studies already a semester ago, he started a theological doctorate in Frankfurt. He plans to work in the formation of pastoral workers. Besides that, he's involved in the same study program as his wife. So both our STL graduates today are going to continue to work in the field of marriage and family, so important generally and especially for us at the ITI.
Nomini et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Lucas Golla, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, nec non ad licentiam thesim qui nomen christliche Sexualpädagogik, quo vadis, Analyse des gegenwärtigen Forschungsstandes sowie aktueller Herausforderungen und Chancen in der christlichen Sexualpädagogik. Scriptit Sacrae Theologiae Licentiatus.
Incipiatis in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
We will now award a doctorate of sacred theology to Father Timo Klein. Supplicat venerabili congregatione doctorum et magistrorum regentium, qui complevit omniaque per statuta requiruntur, ut ex sufficient, quo admittatur ad gradum enumeratum sacrae theologiae doctor, magistri, does the faculty concede?
Concedo.
Haec gratia concessa sunt, et sic pronuntiamus concessas. I ask now the supervisor of the thesis, Professor Harstetter, to introduce the candidate.
Pater Timo Klein studied philosophy and theology at the Pontifical Athenaeum Regina Apostolorum in Rome and at the Hochschule Heiligenkreuz. He came to the ITI because of its Catholic spirit and enjoyed in particular the Institute's support for research on Joseph Ratzinger, and I hope also in pastoral theology. He will return to campus ministry at the KHG Wien to serve university students in the capital of Austria.
Institutum Theologicum Internationale, nomine et auspiciis summi pontificis nostri Francisci, vi potestatis a sede apostolica nobis concesse, Timo Klein, postquam experimenta omnia legibus instituti prescripta, magna cum laude superavit, nec non doctoralem tesim qui nomen, Pastoral Theologie im Werk Joseph Ratzingers Benedikt XVI, Grundlegungen und Entwicklungen, Scriptit, Sacrae Theologiae Doctor, Renunciatus et declaratus est, collatis in eum omnibus insignibus et iuribus, que ad hunc gradum pertinent, in cuius rei testimonium nos rector et rectoris vicem gerens nec non decanus auctoritate rite commissa. Before we enjoy the musical talents of the ITI, I would like to first of all invite His Eminence to not pass a degree to somebody, but to, by surprise, recognize a priest amongst us. And then afterwards, Your Eminence, we would like to ask you to say a few words to the graduates and those here present before, unfortunately, His Eminence will then have to leave us.
Dear graduates, dear faculty, dear rector, dean, and friends and families, it's always a great moment to assist at the graduation celebration. It's a life experience of the discernment of God's work in the world, in our time. You all wouldn't be here if there were not a call in your life in a great variety. Danke sehr. In a great variety of ways. As Pope Benedict said at the question of a journalist, how many ways are to God? And his answer was, so many as there are human beings. Each of you has a very personal call, and that you are here is for me, I would say, the sixth proof of the existence of God, added to the Cinque Vie of St. Thomas Aquinas, the work of God in your life. I want to first, before saying some little reflections, I want to highlight one of us here whose work has been so vital for this institute for many years, and who has served the church in an exemplary way to make curiosity not too intense. I speak about Father Larry Hogan. Father Larry, as actually your diocesan bishop, it's for me a great joy and privilege to thank first of all the Lord, but then all those who have helped you, but especially you as the synergos of the grace of God, the co-work of God's grace for the 50 years of your priesthood. And I want to express this with a little word, a written word of gratitude. So I read it in German. I think you still understand somehow German. Gelobt sei Jesus Christus. In Anerkennung deiner Sorge um die Ehre Gottes, um die griechisch-katholische Kirche und deine Gläubigen sprechen wir dir namens der katholischen Kirche in Österreich mit besonderer Freude Dank und Anerkennung zum 50. Jahr deiner Priesterweihe und für deinen großzügigen Einsatz im priesterlichen Dienst aus. Der dreifaltige Gott schenke dir weiterhin die Gnade, in der Heiligkeit zu wachsen und in der Liebe zu ihm, zu seiner Kirche und deinen Gläubigen für weitere viele und gesegnete Jahre. Der Herr segne dich. Mnoga leta, auf viele Jahre, ad multos annos. Thank you, Father Larry. I want to add some very short words about some thoughts about what inspires me in this graduation. One of you said that you came here to improve the certitude of your faith. There are rare people in this room who know so well the catechism of the Catholic Church than our dear Dani, who celebrates her birthday today. And you remember, Dani, that in the Catechism there is a passage on faith where it is said, nothing is more certain than faith. The certitude of faith. This seems a paradox, because in German we say, Glauben heißt nichts wissen. To believe means not to know. Because if you believe, I believe that's today, 8th of June, yeah, you are not sure, you do not really know. I believe that my professor will give me a good note. Yeah. It's not very certain. Why is faith of such a certitude? There's nothing more certain than faith. First of all, we must say, of course, you can read it in the Catechism, the certitude of faith is not on our side, it's on the side of God. Because He is the truth, and He cannot lie, and He cannot betray us. So there is nothing more certain than God Himself. And faith means every act of faith is bringing us immediately in relation to the reality of God. So, from the object of our act of faith, nothing is more certain than faith. But of course, in the way we act as believers, our act of faith can be surrounded by darkness, by difficulties. Blessed John Henry Newman would say, not by doubt, because that's a quote you find in the Catechism. Yeah? 10,000 difficulties do not represent a doubt, says John Henry Newman. It's not doubt, but there are many difficulties. There are difficulties for our reason, for our experience. I had the privilege to listen for 4 years the lectures of a great Jewish philosopher, Emanuel Levinas. And one day I asked him, we were mainly a group of professors who came to listen to his very special lectures on rabbinic exegesis. And I asked him, Professor, what do you think about the historical critical exegesis? And in a very rabbinic way, his answer was, and I remember it very precisely. He said, a young Jew goes through 3 crises. Probably a Jewish boy or girl earlier than a Catholic, because they are so acute. Yeah. The first crisis is the scientific crisis, when he becomes aware that things that are written in the Bible cannot function like that. 6 days of creation and things like that. And he said that to overcome this crisis, he thought that may happen at 12 years. Yeah. For me, it came later. You need you need to know that the Word of God is greater. The second crisis, he said, is the historical crisis. Of course, many questions arise when you read the Bible. Is that all true? Is that historically trustworthy? And again, he said, to overcome this crisis, the young person becomes aware that God's ways are greater than our historical knowledge. And then he said, and later comes the existential crisis. Is all that true in life, in my life, what I've heard, read in the Bible, in the teaching of faith? Does this really fit with life? And to overcome this crisis, it is to become aware that life is greater than all the difficulties. I hope I have faithfully remembered this very typically rabbinic answer, because he didn't answer directly. But he pointed at all the difficulties we may have in faith. But they do not represent a doubt. They represent only difficulties. Then, of course, he added a last word. There was a fourth crisis. That was the Shoah. And at this crisis, he said, there's no answer. And that means for us that there is, in the last perspective, and in the last, there is a time, there is a moment in life where faith enters really in darkness, but where the reality of God is touched through the fidelity of the act of faith. The certitude. I want to address shortly or advertise a dear friend. For many years, more than 50 years, I am a devotee of Franz Jägerstätter. Franz Jägerstätter, a simple Austrian farmer who got married with Franziska, his wife, in the 30s. And as a simple farmer who had only primary school, he discerned the dangers of the Nazi ideology. And what fascinated me from the very beginning when I met him as a young, I met the writings of Franz Jägerstätter. He has written some little booklets for his family, where he discerned in an extraordinary way truth. And it always struck me, how is it possible that this simple farmer has reached a certitude that led him to martyrdom? Because at a certain point, he came to the clear conviction that I cannot serve the Dritte Reich and the reign of Christ. And And this certitude, he didn't gain only intellectually. He read a lot, he reflected a lot, he discussed. But the certitude of his faith grew through a spiritual life that helped him to discern the errors, the failures of the Nazi ideology. Whereas great philosophers, as Martin Heidegger, were trapped by the Nazi ideology, this simple farmer discerned in a very precise way, philosophically, with arguments, why the Nazi ideology is wrong. And this was not only a sentiment, it was also an intellectual certitude, but based on the discernment of truth that he received through his faith. So for me, in my own way, I was then a young Dominican when I first read Franz Jägerstätter's writings. It was the school. He became for me a teacher in what is Christian certitude. Of course, I'm sure that the ITI has helped you to gain. Your example helps me. I'm sure that the studies at the ITI helped you a lot to strengthen the certitude of your faith. Faith and reason are absolutely linked together because faith wants to know, needs to know. It is an act of consensus that needs to be nourished intellectually, emotionally, in your will and in your life. But the last certitude of faith comes from elsewhere. It is another topic that was touched in your works about friendship. I call you friends. That was your work. Yeah. I call you friends. The friendship with Jesus gives this certitude because Jesus himself had his certitude from his innermost unity with the Father and the selflessness of his surrendering to the Father. He does nothing out of himself. He does what he sees the Father doing, what the Father says, he says. My word is not my word, but the word of the one who has sent me. So the certitude of faith that allows Franz Jägerstätter to offer his life, despite the fact that he had 3 little beautiful girls and a loving wife, Franziska, the certitude of martyrdom. So I do not wish you a bloody martyrdom. It may be a great privilege if we are called to that, but we can only be called to that with a special grace. But I wish you the martyrdom of fidelity to the certitude of faith, which may be shaken through many circumstances in your life, many moments in your life. May your time at the ITI help you when difficult moments come, that there is certitude, nothing more certain than faith. Dani, what's the number of the catechism article? About the certitude of faith.
I don't know the number.
But she knows the text. Thank you.
Whilst we listen to our choir, His Eminence will depart. And once again, dearest Cardinal Schönborn, our Grand Chancellor, we really thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and I think I speak on behalf of all of us here, first of all, for you being with us today, despite being in recovery, and count that with all the people here in this hall, we will continue praying for your complete healing, and we thank you for closing with these beautiful words, and we wish all of us many years with you here at the ITI.
It is my pleasure to invite Rachel Johnson, chosen by her fellow graduates, to be the class speaker to now give her address to us. Please.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, friends and family of the ITI, and my fellow graduates, congratulations. First, I want to thank you for selecting me to be your class speaker. For one, it's an honor that I do not take lightly, but for another, there is something that I want to share with each of you, and you're all gathered in one place, and no one can run away. So, my message is this, and this is something I wished I had received at my last graduation. You are exactly where you need to be. I think many commencement speeches, they emphasize some destination off in the future. Now you have your degree, go out, change the world, as if there's another mountain that you have to climb before you can say that you've made it. But, surprise, life is not a LinkedIn profile. Instead of measuring your heart for if you've accomplished earthly success, instead weigh your heart for its faithfulness to God. In other words, you are right where you need to be as long as your heart is pointed to God. It is the difference between the two thieves at the crucifixion. It is the difference between a governor like Pontius Pilate and an emperor like Constantine. But, of course, to live this way is, well, it requires a lot of discernment, daily discernment. And there's 3 key tools that I would like to share from my favorite priest on YouTube, Father Mike Schmitz. So the first thing to keep in mind is try to be in a state of grace. And this means going to confession when you need to. This first step is important for the second one, which is prayer. In order to discern, you need to be in constant dialogue with God. And third, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, fulfill the responsibilities and duties that you have now. A couple weeks ago, that meant studying and practicing your best British accent for the production of Oliver Twist. And actually, one of the actors, the actor who played Mr. Brownlow, his accent was so good, I did believe he was British. Right now, it is your duty to look regal, attentive, and to sit up straight in these chairs. But I do believe in you because months of Thursday night lectures have prepared you for this. As for the future, which is still unknown, don't worry. The Holy Spirit will let you know what you need to do. Just don't be surprised if he tells you to get a job by reminding you of your student loans. Of course, not all responsibilities are so formally assigned. We have a commitment to the community, and we have a commitment to those around us. And it's been a source of great joy for me that I've been able to witness your genuine love for God by observing your love for each other. You've brought food to your sick neighbors. You have woken up at unholy hours to take someone to the airport. And there is so much spontaneous singing that life here is basically like a musical. And I have you all to thank for that, for the open mic performances in the Keller, for bringing excitement to this little quiet corner of Austria. I suppose we also have God to thank for putting us in Trumau, bringing us to Trumau. I know it's had its ups and downs, but maybe he thought the best way to teach us to cook was to put us in a town with 1 restaurant and 1 kebab shop. But I'm also not going to complain about getting to study in a castle. And speaking of studying, thank you, each and every one of you, for bringing your insights, your enthusiasm, your experience, to bring the most out of the seminar method. So not only do we learn from the great masters, but we learned from Christ himself in each and every one of us. And I would like to go on, but I think that would be against the common good, which, as we know, is neither divided nor diminished the more we partake, and I think I've taken enough of your time. But there's one last little thing I want to add. Interestingly, Claire Colombe actually beat me to it last night, but I want to publicly thank Suzanne Krompelman for her 5 years of behind-the-scenes service at the ITI. And just to highlight one of the many things that she's done for us, I'm not sure any American student would have successfully gotten their visa without her. So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Rachel. Now I invite our rector, Dr. Christian Alting von Geusau, to give us his commencement address to us.
This is the moment everybody dreads, because the ceremony is almost over and then the rector has to have his say, right? And thank you, Rachel, for the quiet warning you gave about the common good. I had already preconceived that such a reality would be present, so don't worry, I will not forget the common good. Dear graduates, first of all, it is difficult to speak at the end of this ceremony after having listened to such inspiring words, especially by our beloved Grand Chancellor. There is not much that can match this testimony of faith. And once again, I hope you have noted those words of Cardinal Schönborn. I also, before giving you a few reflections to conclude this ceremony, I also want to take the opportunity to ask you to give a big thank you to our faculty, who have been such faithful guardians, faithful tutors, faithful teachers in so many ways. It is because of their quiet dedication, their faith, and their hard work, in which I explicitly include all the members of the administration who also do their quiet work throughout the year. I would like to ask you to pass them all a warm round of applause to thank them. I can only say, and I say that at every occasion, and I mean it really from my heart, that it is a great privilege for me as rector to work with such a dedicated faculty and staff from whom I learn so much, and I am extremely grateful for that. So graduates, but also dear students and faculty staff, dear guests, as we come to the closure of this most important academic event of the year, I would like to give our fresh graduates some brief parting thoughts. As you step out of the Schloss today, or tomorrow, or next week, whenever you leave, and make your way into the world, even though, as Rachel correctly said, you are where you're meant to be, but there is also a next stage of where you're meant to be, So as you step out of the Schloss today and make your way into the world, never forget that what counts is not what you do, but who you are. As a Christian, baptized and open to the movements of the Holy Spirit, you are not called to be successful, but you are called to be faithful. As Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta never tired of teaching to us. True, lasting and inspiring success comes only when we are faithful to Christ and to the unique calling He has given us. And we heard in the reflections of Cardinal Schönborn just that a few moments ago. We need to be faithful to Christ through our faith, through our consistency, through this certitude that we have, and to the unique calling He has given each one of us, and the unique calling He has given, especially today, each one of you, dear graduates. And I would like to illustrate this very simple wisdom that is yet so challenging to live by, reminding you of a very important anniversary that we commemorated this week on Thursday, June 6th, here in Europe. On June 6th, it was exactly 75 years ago that the Allied Operation Overlord, also known as D-Day or the D-Day landings, started on the beaches of Normandy in France to liberate Europe from the yoke of Nazi rule of terror and from the yoke of the Holocaust, to which also the Cardinal just referred in his talk, the Shoah. On Thursday, this was commemorated by leaders from Europe and the United States and many other countries, as they all commented on the fact that many thousands of young men, on that day 160,000 troops landed through the beaches of Normandy. Thousands of young men on that day sacrificed their lives whilst others got wounded for Europe's freedom, for an end to the Holocaust, something we so easily take for granted today in our wellness and entitlement society. We are so consumed by consuming that we often forget the heavy price that was paid for our liberty. What came out of the speeches and the testimonies of the surviving veterans who were present and rightly being honored was one thing very clearly. They were faithful. As those young men leaving behind loved ones in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Poland, the Netherlands, and many other countries, stormed those beaches of Normandy under heavy gunfire and seeing many of their comrades being ripped apart by bullets all around them, they persisted. They were faithful. They kept to their calling to a higher good, liberty, and often paid for it with their own lives, overcoming their fears. Now, I'm not giving here a talk about the question of just war or not. I'm just merely illustrating the example where in a specific moment of history, young men were willing to give their lives for the freedom of others and for the end of injustice. Their sacrifice was truly heroic because the odds were stacked against them, and most of them were fighting on a continent that was not even their own. Their success is what we live today, our freedom and our prosperity. But it was only possible because of a deliberate choice they made to be faithful. Faithful to whom they were and what they were called to do, and willing to pay the ultimate price. Dear graduates, today we are also living a war, as Pope Francis has reminded us at various occasions, where again Western civilization is at stake. Yet it is a very different sort of war, a hybrid war, but equally dangerous for the human soul and for humanity as a whole. You have had the privilege, dear graduates, to study here because you are called to fight in this war and to storm the beaches of destructive and dehumanizing ideologies that are destroying and ripping apart the lives of many more people than were ever killed in the combined wars of the 20th century. And I was very touched by the word of one of the students today who graduated, that it's not just a nice phrase that we Christians have to go and change the world. It's a tough reality. And as the Cardinal just said about the life of the Saint Franz Jägerstätter, who of us are called to what sort of martyrdom? Who of us are called to stand up, to stand out, and not to be afraid to leave our comfort zones? Dear graduates, you are called to help end the greatest slaughter of all times, which is abortion, where according to official UN figures, between 50 and 60 million killings of preborn human beings take place annually. You are called to help end the rising trend globally of the persecution and discrimination of Christians and some other religions, but the Christians being the most persecuted religion in the world, even more than under the times of Nero, leading to scenes of unspeakable horrors and the deaths of tens of thousands of people. This is another thing where you are called and where the world is quiet. You are called, dear graduates, to do all in your power to strengthen the sanctity of marriage and the well-being of children and families, to show our confused world how nature and reason lead us to understand an ordered sexuality. You are called, dear graduates, to educate, and to educate with an authenticity deeply rooted in a life in Christ, with Christ, and through Christ. Hence, faithfulness. In the words of our Holy Father, Pope Francis, education cannot be neutral. Either it enriches or it impoverishes. There is no in between. So you are called to go out and to educate, first by your lived example, and only then by your words. And this education is needed on all levels of society and in all professions, everywhere. Let me close with the famous words of our founder, John Paul II, Saint John Paul II. As the family goes, so goes the nation, and so goes the whole world in which we live. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Father. We invite now the ITI Ensemble of the Liberal Arts Music class to perform das Wessobrunner Gebet, Mater et Filia, and Turot Ezik Azigani. I think the composer is from Hungary, and Zoltán Kodály. Is it right? Yes. Please.
Je
Thank you. This was very inspiring. Very much. So, it's after such a long ceremony, yes? We are coming to the end of our ceremony, but before we conclude, we have some announcements. Father.
May the Lord bless our coming and going as we pray at the prayer of the entrance. So now we will enter the world. We will take the graduates and the professors in a procession, and we place you outside of the gates, symbolically, and also to take the picture. The gates will be closed. I hope only once in your experience. You will not be able to enter for about a few minutes till the picture is being taken, the big photograph. Take a little break, and then when the gates are open, then we will ask kindly everyone to proceed as soon as possible to the Heuriger Scheibenreif, which is next to the Raiffeisenbank. Then we will have dinner to celebrate. The last point to announce that there are several masses tomorrow, as this is the beautiful feast of the Pentecost. Dr. Father Timo will celebrate the early travelers' mass, Padre Pio, the parish mass, and the divine liturgy.
So, would the graduates please stand? It is my pleasure to introduce to you the 2019 graduates of the International Theological Institute.